You need to get inside their head before they need you, so when they need you, you're already there. How do you do that? You get to know, like, and trust you. How do you get someone to know, like, and trust you? You have to be interested in them first, so they become interested in you, so then they get to know you, then they get to like you, and once you like you, they'll trust you, and people do business with people they trust.
Welcome to Survey Booker Sessions. Tune in to hear from people working in a range of industries and roles to provide you ideas that you can take away and use in your own business. I'm your host, Matt Nally, the founder and director of Survey Booker, which is the leading CRM and survey management system for surveyors. So on today's episode, we've got Chris Watkin, who helps loads of estate agents and thousands of estate agents with their social media and had loads of advice for different channels and so on. But so thanks for coming on today, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, Matt.
Anytime. Do you want to just give a sort of quick overview as to sort of what you help agents and letting agents with?
I help letting and estate agents attract new listings, new vendors and new landlords to their agency to list their properties to them by using the power of content marketing to attract people to them, as opposed to the old, well, no, not necessarily the old ways, because I know a lot of people listen to this as surveyors, so they can remember the old days before the bastard banks, that's a technical term, you might have to beat that one out, went and bought all the estate agents in the 80s. And doing it without hard sell or trying to sell stuff because people don't like to be sold to, by attracting them by being an attraction agent. And this works in any profession. I'm actually a trained surveyor myself. I just decided never to go into the profession. This will work for surveyors. It will work for anyone.
Yeah, I think I was really interested to speak to you because I've seen for years now, you've obviously consistently put a lot of content out. And I think with agents and surveyors, they both got the same challenge in terms of it's not a recurring customer. It's someone that might come in, maybe slightly different for letting agents, but on the estate agency side, it's a one-off transaction every so often. And so it's that same sort of challenge as to how do you attract people and get them to know about you and fees and all that kind of stuff. But I think the first thing I see you post about a lot, which I find interesting, is the pie chart. So for estate agents, the right move pie chart. What is it about that, and sort of talking about I don't know how many jobs you've had or reviews and stuff like that isn't useful for?
Well,
customers?
okay. So for the surveyors that are listening that don't necessarily follow me on social media, I actually a lot of estate agents, and again, this is a trait that a lot of human beings do as well, but a lot of estate agents are quite egotistical in the way that they act as people. And I'm making a sweeping statement here, but the vast majority of them are. And egotistical people like to brag about what they have achieved. So therefore, there's an awful lot of estate agents out there that will either, and you will see it in two main forms. The first form is a right move pie chart, and right move produces this pie chart which tells you how much of the marketplace you have of either listings or sales over a certain time period in a certain location. And estate agents love to put these pie charts out saying, look at me, I'm the number one estate agent in my town, and I have the biggest slice of pie. Now, if you've got 50% of the marketplace, well, you go for it. But when we've got estate agents saying I'm the number one estate agent and they've literally got 4% of the market and their nearest competitor is 3.9 and the next one is 3.8, then I don't consider that particularly impressive. And again, I'd ask your listeners, what do we think to people who brag? What is your intent? And that's a magic word with social media, is what is your intent behind the post? And I call it the get or give question. Are you posting something to give, or are you posting something to get? And I think someone bragging about their market share is not particularly interesting. Also, there's again, estate agents will do a photograph of a house and they say, I've exchanged contracts on this. Well, that would be just like a chartered surveyor saying, I've just been around this house, or I've just received the instruction, or an architect saying, I've just put my plans in. Because every single they never post about the person who's paying the bill. That we are servants to the people who pay us. We are here to provide a service for the client. In the case of chartered surveyors, making sure the bloody thing's not going to fall down. In the case of an estate agent, moving one person from one chapter of their life to the other. But I often feel estate agents see estate agency there to serve them, not to serve the customers. Now, thankfully, chartered surveyors aren't that eager. They're the type of person who's attracted to becoming a chartered surveyor are not that egotistical. But they can
Yeah.
still learn from that. I mean, you would never dream of a solicitor saying, or an account, or even a surgeon saying, I've just saved so many lives today. No, it's like the person at the party who talks about themselves all the time. What do we think to that person? I mean, Matt, what do we think to the person who quite literally talks about themselves? But that's what estate agents do. So chartered surveyors, if all social media is what you and people in their 40s and 50s say, well, I wasn't brought up with this. No, neither was I. Neither was you. Okay. Okay, you weren't born and learned. You had to learn to drive a car and ride a bike, and you're going to need to learn how to do this. But all social media is what you and I would say face to face, but on a computer screen.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just it's just a different communication. It used to be letters, then it went to telephones, then it went to fax machines, and then we have mobile phones, and just social media is just a way to communicate. And you would never dream of going to the local Rotary Club or Freemasons Hall and start saying, hey, I've just done a home buyers report, scheme 2, on 4 houses today. And I am brilliant. Because no one,
No, it's a fair point.
So it's really, if you want content marketing or social media, as we said, is just a way to communicate with someone. The question is, how are you going to communicate with someone? What are you going to say that is going to attract people to you? Because nobody's walking around saying, if my wife walks out of me, I'm going to call that solicitor. And no one's walking around saying, if I bought a house and there's a crack in it, I'm going to call that surveyor.
Yeah. So I know you talk a lot about therefore telling a story rather than just posting the stats of how many jobs you've done or how many reviews you've got.
Do you know why that is the case, Matt?
I'd imagine it's on an emotional level as a consumer. You can buy into or engage more with that topic. No?
Stop thinking like a bloody charter surveyor or someone, and let's start thinking like proper human beings. Okay. So here's a question, Matt. Why can you remember the storyline to Cinderella, or all the nursery rhymes, or all your favourite films, but you can't remember what your other half told you yesterday?
Yeah, I'll get in trouble for that one, actually.
Let's just dive in here a little bit. Why?
Well, I suppose it takes you back to a memory. Music and rhymes and stuff like that takes you back to memories.
This is the science behind it, okay?
Yeah.
So at the moment, so you have 2 sides to your brain, okay? You have the logical conscious side and you have the emotional subconscious side, okay?
Yes.
To give you an idea of the size of each, the subconscious is the conscious logical side of your brain, if you had to map it out in areas, because we're dealing with charter surveyors here, so they like a little bit of areas here, would be 9 foot square.
Okay.
Your subconscious or your emotional side is 9 acres.
Oh, wow. So huge difference.
Huge difference. Now, the way the human brain works is this, okay? Everything comes in to the conscious side of the brain, okay? The logical side, okay? The conscious deals with language and details and things like that. It's not very good at remembering things. It's just give me a problem and I'll solve it. Give me a problem and I'll solve it, okay? But if it has to deal with anything or think, it then has to, or more importantly, put things into the memory, it then has to put it into the subconscious side of your brain. And then it has to translate your consciousness into because subconscious cannot deal with language, right? It
Okay.
doesn't work in language. It deals with feelings.
Yes.
You know, when you
Yeah.
get that gut reaction, that's your subconscious. I don't feel right, subconscious. Okay. Now, stories and more importantly, the emotions behind those stories are stored in the subconscious. But it takes a lot of brain effort to convert logic into a story, unless it's already a story.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's why the brain says, we'll remember this because it's already a story. It made me feel good. We don't have to expend any brain power. Let's get it straight into the subconscious.
Perfect. Okay.
That's why you can remember Cinderella, your favorite films, your favorite songs, because at the time it felt good. So what
Yes.
happens is you remember the feelings, they stay there forever, and then when you need to recall it, it goes back into the conscious. The conscious, oh yeah, remember this one, because and because they work together, and that's why you remember. So if you're going to tell us, if you can tell stories, those who tell stories are going to win in this world. You know,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single, you know, we think of Winston Churchill, we think of Gandhi, we think all of them were just creating stories that we listened to and made us feel differently about ourselves. So, for example, there's an estate agent in Grantham, my hometown, centre of the property universe, obviously. Not because of me, but there's loads of people in Grantham that, you know, anyway. Um, okay, so there's an estate agent. So you put out a photograph of with the word exchanged on it, and no one will share it and will get no comments. Tony Ruby put a photograph of his first exchange with his family outside, saying, "This is the first exchange of my business. Not only it's actually affected 4 people's lives. The person who's moving on has now moved to Chelmsford to be near their daughter and their grandkids. The person who's moved in is now living 3 doors down from their mum and dad. I can't remember who the third one was. And the fourth one's family was me and my family. The fact is that I've set up my own business." And that had 200 comments, 20 shares, and more likes than you could throw a stick out because they were telling a story. So how could surveyors take that on board with regard to their social media posts? And I would be, all of you, because I did my time as a surveyor doing my APC. I've got stories where basically, if you hadn't have come in, the shit would have hit the fan, and they would have bought a house with wall tie failure or whatever. And I would be creating stories. Not all your content should be stories, but an important element of it should be stories. I want to tell and you could say, what about client confidentiality? Just fuzzy it up a bit. Get a bottle of wine on a Friday night, sit down with a piece of paper, and just go through your memory all the things where basically, if you had to interjected, the poo would have hit the fan. And just write, "This is Miggins, 46 High Street, XYZ Village." And just write the addresses down as you're going and the wine's going. And then later next week, right, let's create a story around that particular scenario. And then if you're going to do a story, make sure it follows this pattern, because all stories need to follow this pattern.
So what's the pattern you'd recommend for that?
Say again?
What's the pattern you'd recommend for a story in terms of structure?
So let's go nursery rhymes, because they're the classic stories. What does every nursery rhyme start with?
Oh, I don't know, actually.
Once upon a time.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So you can split these into 3 sections, right?
I had Ring a Ring of Roses in my head for some reason. Like I couldn't get to Once Upon a Time.
Okay, let's not go. Okay, probably not nursery rhymes. Let's go fairy tales.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So 3 sections. First section, Once Upon a Time. So how would that look? Hi, my name is Chris Watkin, Grantham's one of Grantham's chartered surveyors, and I want to tell you a story of Mr. and Mrs. Miggins. You'd have changed their name, by the way. Mr. and Mrs. Miggins, who were about to buy a 3-bedroom semi in the north end of Grantham. They were looking to buy this because of their future home. They were living in a 2-bedroom terraced house on Victoria Street, but they'd outgrown it and they'd wanted to move to the next chapter of their life. You could turn around, okay, let's just pause a second here. You say, what the hell's that got to do with charter surveying? Absolutely nothing. But it's setting the scene and you're sucking in the people who go, oh, yeah, that's me. I'm me. Yeah, go on, then. I live in a terrace house. I'm looking to move up. And they'd come into, they'd come into some money and they decided they wanted to move up to the Manthorpe estate. Now, most of the houses on the Manthorpe estate are Gelson 3-bedroom semis or Foster's 3-bedroom semis. Now, this particular one had a lovely double garage extension. And the property had actually been on the market for 6 months because there was various cracks and people were just being really turned off by it. It'd come down £20,000, so they got me in. Right, so there's your start. Right, okay, right then. The middle one is shit hits the fan. Hero comes in and saves the day. Okay, remembering the hero is not you, the surveyor. The hero is the client. The client got me in, and now again, you know what? Everyone has objections. If the surveyors, £500 for home buyers, bloody hell, that's expensive, or £1,000, So you could say, so they called me in, and I said I'd go around. Now, of course, they said, when I quoted them that it would cost them £1,000 for a building survey, they balked at that. But what I said was this: is that I suggested to them that it was an investment in their property, and if they bought it without it, they could lose £20,000 if there was a problem. But if they did buy it and it was okay, by spending £1,000, they were going to get £30,000 knocked off. Okay, and then there might be other objections. So kind of this is the objections that people come up with to use your services, chartered surveyors. You basically tell the story of, they were worried about the fee, they were worried about the time, they were worried about whatever the objection is. You tell the story of how that potential client had that objection, and then how you got them over it, and they decided that they would go for it.
It's a clever idea, that actually, to put the objection handling into the story.
Nice.
Well, no, but it works very well.
Every story. It's the reason why human beings have evolved, because our logical side does not remember stories, but it does remember. But our emotional side does. Don't go near the saber-toothed tiger because your grandfather got killed. So now no one's going to get killed by the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Don't go put your hand in the fire because your brother got burned. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Section 3 is happily ever after. So I went round to the house. I digged some foundations, noticed it was just thermal expansion, absolutely nothing to worry about. And they moved into their house with a double garage and the granny extension, and they got £30,000 knocked off simply by using my services. And then you would market it out as my story of buying a house with a crack in it. A Grantham house. You're in Grantham, Shrewsbury in Shrewsbury, Droitwich in Droitwich. My story of buying a bit clickbaity. It's not clickbaity. It's eye-catching. Watch it. People go, yeah, house with a crack in. Whoa! So that's one type of content you could be doing, but there are other types of content.
Yeah, I was going to come on to the other types of content in a moment. There's a couple of points you touched on there, actually, which I found interesting. One is one slightly separate, which is who should do the video. So if you're a sole trader, single surveyor, it's quite straightforward. You do your own stories and put your own information out there. If you are on the other end and you work for a corporate, do you still put out stories? Like, do you recommend that with the estate agents?
It depends whether your bosses will allow you, but I think people buy from people, so it should always be you. In terms of your equipment, you already have a camera.
Yeah.
You need a tripod. Get a tripod off Amazon, which is this new Bezos film, which is probably get one that's half decent, 30, 40 quid. Buy what's called a tripod mobile phone adapter, which is a little thing that screws into the bottom and you set your phone in. Most people, and then you have a wireless microphone. So if you go to Amazon and type in iPhone lapel wireless mic, there's some from China which are £14.99. one that goes into the bottom of your phone, and one that clips onto your lapel. Make sure you have that little fluffy thing on if you're outside. Okay, and you just press record. Okay, and you do it. Now if you and don't worry about that. Just get it out. You might want to do a few takes. Then how do you edit it? Right, there's this new website which teaches you how to do video editing. Take this one down. Are you ready, Matt? It's Google. Okay, it's a new website, and you type in "how do I edit film?" And okay, I'm taking a piss here, but
yeah.
I taught myself how to do video edit. I've got an Apple Mac. It has a free piece of software called iMovie.
Yeah.
Don't do iMovie on phones or tablets, then it's not very good. But on a laptop or an iMac, it's very good. And you basically go to YouTube and how do I edit a film? You don't need logos. All you need to do is crop the start and crop the end. That's all you need to do. And then if you're on Android or Windows, my recommendation is Adobe is the firm, and it's Premiere Rush. Now there's other different versions of Premiere. You want Premiere Rush. It's $9.99 a month, and it is so intuitive. It's unbelievable. You could pick it up in minutes. The way it works is all decent video editing software puts the film in like an old 35mm film across the bottom, and you just cut bits out. If you cut bits out, you put what's called in a transition. How do you find a transition? Go to Google and find out how do I put a transition in Google, in Adobe Premiere Rush. It really is that easy. You've got no excuse. It's simple, and the reason video works particularly well is there's only three ways you can communicate with a human being: the written word, audio, or visual. And visual is very powerful because the subconscious cannot distinguish between watching this screen and meeting someone. It cannot distinguish between the two. That's why and I'll prove it to you, that's why we feel like we know these superstars, the famous actors.
Yeah.
We feel like we know them. We've never met them. Why? Because our subconscious, our emotional side cannot distinguish seeing someone on the screen versus.
Definitely.
So that's what I would be doing. Now, some people don't like video, and they're absolutely, and I get it why people don't like video. So you could potentially do a podcast. Now, there's an app called Anchor, as in not the rude word, but the thing that actually puts out to make sure it doesn't float away. Anchor.fm. Okay? And I would be you could set up a podcast. I did this live on stage in front of my clients, and I called it the Grantham Podcast. And I took a photograph of myself, typed in Grantham Podcast, and then dictated on Apple, this is a Grantham podcast talking about the Grantham property market, and with all news and views or all my own. Okay, press return. I then went to my voice memo function on my phone, because everyone's got a voice memo, whether you're Android or Apple, and I recorded. Hi, it's Chris here, and this is the first episode of the Grantham Podcast, and today I'm talking about blah, 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 blah. I did all that. I pressed stop. I then went to my Anchor app, and I basically uploaded that file onto Anchor, and within 3 minutes, I was on iTunes, Spotify, and loads of others. There's no excuse.
No, it's super easy to get stuff out there. But
I suppose continuing it. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, you put some interesting posts actually about the number of people that give up very quickly.
Yes,
I think was it podcasts, something like you're in the top 1% after 20 episodes or something like that.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
But what's the key though with distribution in terms of let's say you're on LinkedIn, you're on social media, Facebook, for example, and a lot of your network is other surveyors, for example. How do you start getting that content out in front of a home buyer or other agents and stuff like that? Is it just
so if you're based in Grantham, okay, it would be fair to say that, and just change Grantham to the name of your town, it'd be fair to say that 100% of Grantham homeowners, where do they live, Matt?
Well, Grantham.
Okay. Who are the only people that join Grantham Facebook groups? People from?
Grantham.
There you go. There's your answer. Join town Facebook groups, and then drip feed. Don't share into the groups, post in the groups. So if you've got 3 groups, don't share in 3, just physically go into each group. And as long as your post is not selling anything, and post as yourself, not as your surveying firm, is helping. The other type of content you definitely should be doing is problem solving videos. Hi, my name is Chris Watkin, and if you've got a crack in your property, what should you look for? Now, if you're at a property with a crack, why don't you take a photograph or a video? And as long as you do it so you can't tell which property it is, or you can, let's be honest, most cracks are normally thermal. So if you're ever at a property, do you have a crack like this in your wall? And do a little video, a little selfie video, with the crack over your shoulder. Hi, it's Chris here. Just want to give you an update is that if you often see a crack in a property, it's not always structure. In fact, most of the time it's just thermal. I've got this crack here. So really what we're doing is we have a look at see whether the crack's on the other corner, which way it goes. And, if a crack goes that way, more likely to be structural, but if a crack goes that way, it's more likely to be thermal. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. So if you ever see a crack in your property and you're not sure whether it's thermal or structural, then give me a call.
And that's the type of thing that's very easy to do every time you're out on site. So you're not having to build in separate time to do marketing and content.
Yeah. And if people say they haven't got time, then I challenge them. Go onto your phone settings. You all spend 5 hours a day looking at funny videos with cats sitting around on Roombas dressed as sharks. If you ain't got time to do a video, then I'm sorry. Because I tell you here and now, if you don't do it, some whippersnapper who's just come out of Cirencester or Nottingham Trent Poly, I know it's called Nottingham, not called Trent anymore, who's done urban estate surveying, or whatever it's called this week, will do it and will become the dominant player in your town.
Oh, definitely. And I think we're starting to see more of a shift. It's particularly people like yourselves putting content out there, are starting to see the benefits of the ongoing thing. But it's the consistency, I think, is the key with that.
The killer bit is that quite often starting is hard, but carrying on when you're not getting any likes or comments or business is even harder. You see, it's all about building trust, and the problem is that you can't buy trust; you have to earn it.
That comes with the time.
I interview people from the Great and Good of UK Estate Agency on my sofa, and even after 2 years, my wife was questioning whether we should still be doing it. Rightly so. Yeah, because I was getting nothing back from it.
How long did it take you to start seeing the traction off the content you were putting out?
It depends what you call traction.
I suppose.
Are we talking about actual hard business or comments or likes or
more on the actual inquiries and business?
This is the really weird thing. Okay, so I'm a bit of a purist. I don't know whether I get business from directly. Sometimes it's a bit like if I asked you, do you know the time when the day that you fell in love with your other half? Do you mark the love that you have for your other half by a percentage each day? And the answer to both is no. It kind of grew into it, and no, I don't mark them every day. And I think sometimes the problem that people have with this content marketing is that you can't actually measure it. But all I do know is this: I don't advertise my services, but agents still come to me.
So one of the other things, in terms of content then, I suppose one of the other things you talk about is people giving their opinion on market updates or talking about their local area. For surveyors, I think that's just as relevant. So if you're going and collecting keys from an estate agency, you can stop in the high street and talk about the local area and gain interest that way as well.
Definitely. I mean, if you type in local property market reports and then my surname Watkin into YouTube, I've actually done some free training videos on how estate agents can do it. For God's sake, guys, you're a chartered bloody surveyors. You should be able to you should do this with your eyes closed. You're qualified. Especially if you're general practice and you're in the market, you could be talking about, hi, my name's Chris Watkin, and today I want to give you an update of what's happening to 3-bedroom semis in Grantham. If we roll the clock back a year, the average 3-bedroom semi on the Barrowby Gate was selling for 195 to 205,000, whilst the average Gelson 3-bedroom semi on Sunningdale was selling for 205 to 215. Today, we've seen a slight easing back of the prices. So now we're getting 185 for something like this on the Barrowby Gate, and then something like this is on the Sunningdale is going for more like 200 to 205. Now, that does mean that house prices have eased off slightly compared to what happened a year ago. But remember, most people move up market. So your four-bedroom detached house on the Sunningdale, which was going for 350, is now only going for 310, 320. So whilst you might have lost 10 on yours, you've gained 30 at the other end. And that's the way to look at it. I'll be back next where we give you an update of what's happening to two-bedroom semi-detached houses. If you put that on there, it'd be like flies on what's name, or like a tramp on chips.
Yeah, and it takes seconds to do that when you're outside the property you're surveying or in the high street that you're picking the keys up for. You chuck it on Anchor FM, or you upload it to YouTube, and that's just part of your routine, I suppose.
Mm.
So one of the other things I was interested in is you talk a lot about estate agents and how they can improve their fees, or there's a lot of competition on fees and that price at the bottom. And I think surveying sees exactly the same thing, whereby there's this constant talk about downward pressure on prices, whether it's a home buyers or a building survey. What are the keys around how you start to raise your fees and combat the fact that someone is half price?
I mean, there are people out. I don't know about you, but if you had a plumber's, or if you had a problem and you didn't know anyone, you'd ring round a few plumbers or a few builders, and you'd say, I want an extension, or I want a patio down, could you come and quote? But if you've built a relationship up with someone, or someone's recommended you, because remember, trust is transferable, all of us have professionals or contractors, builders, who basically say, come round and do my patio. Well, and then you just say, what's the price? I've just had my dresser painted. James, come and do it. I didn't even ask the price. Hey, he'd done some work for me. It came back. I must admit, it was a couple £100 more than I thought it would be, but it's a damn good job. But I didn't ask him the price. So the fee wasn't an issue because I'd already trusted him. And that's the magic of content marketing, is that you can get inside people's heads before they need you. So when they do need you, they already think, I'm going to call that guy out or that lady out. And, there's estate agents out there that are doing this sort of stuff. And people, they have waiting lists. What do you charge? 2%? Oh, well, I only sell 5 houses at a time, so you have to go on the waiting list. And they'll wait because they've already made the decision that they're going to use that estate agent. You could have the same with surveying.
Yeah, so by cutting out that, you cut out the whole sales process by having put all the hard work in through the content previously.
Yes, because there's a difference between selling something and getting people to buy from you. The posh brands don't need to sell the Lamborghinis. People come to them and buy off them. And it's the same with any service. It's this. If you're just one of another chartered surveyor, the only thing that they can judge you on is your price. Or the 2-minute spiel, but you're just another 2-minute spiel. But if you've been talking to them for the last 2 or 3 years on social media, they've already decided,
Yeah,
that's the one I'm going to use, or that's the lady I'm going to use. So that's how I would do it. The problem is, though, Matt, is that it takes time for that to work.
Yeah, so it's not an immediate return on investment.
No, it isn't. But one thing I've come to the conclusion in life is this: most of us who were born in the 60s and early 70s, and yet I know you're not there. But I'm going to give you the biggest tip I can give you in life, if you want to be successful, is the shortcut in this world is the long game. The shortcut is the long game. Okay? Work hard and be patient, and you'll win. It is as simple as that. It's just that people will try something. They'll do Google AdWords for 2 months, that won't work. Facebook adverts for 2 months, a leaflet for a month, one leaflet, that won't work. Yeah. If you don't want to do this social media rubbish, then put a bloody leaflet through someone's door. But the simple fact is this: you need to get inside their head before they need you. So when they need you, you're already there. How do you do that? You get to know, like, and trust you. How do you get someone to know, like, and trust you? You have to be interested in them first, so they become interested in you. So then they get to know you, then they get to like you, and once you like you, they'll trust you. And people do business with people they trust.
Definitely, and I think one of the points you mentioned there is that consistency. It's just getting started, and then you can refine the content you're putting out and how good you are at it, or where you're posting it. That comes over time, but if you don't start anywhere, then you're never getting yourself
Yeah,
out there.
yeah. You heard what the big one is: starting it. Okay, and if you're not going to do video, do written word or do audio, but do something, please. Then the next hurdle is you'll have a wobble at month 3 to 6. I'm doing all this work, I'm getting nothing back in return. Okay, I see it all the time. Then you'll start to get the business in 12 to 18 months' time. And in about 18 months to 24 months' time, you'll start to get busy from the work, the seeds that you planted last year. And then what happens is that you get too busy, so you stop doing the content. Okay? And when you stop doing the content, the business still keeps coming in because of the seeds that you posted that you planted in the past. But what happens is those seeds, that the crop from them seeds tend to drift off after a few months. Then all of a sudden you start to panic and then you start doing the content again. But the problem is that now you're planting seeds that are not going to harvest for another 12 months. So again, there's another wobble, another potential wobble. If you can follow through with that wobble, the next hurdle that you will get to is that people will start blowing smoke up your backside because you're Mr. Property or Mrs. Property, and it will go to your head, and you'll suffer from hubris. And I see everyone on that journey. I am not aware of any other hurdles, but these are the hurdles that I've come across, and everyone else.
To help with that, can you repurpose content? So does it always have to be new, or can you take something you've done before and repurpose it?
I mean, I do video interviews and lift the audio up and put the audio out. Or you could take clips out. So how do you do that? You listen to it. So that was, you write down the time when it did, and you lift out that. And how do you cut it out? Again, that website youtube.com.
And is it my final question in terms of content? Is it do you find from the people you've worked with the video is the hardest hitting? It has the biggest impact over time, or does written content have a place?
Video is more powerful than audio simply because because it's visual as well as audio. Okay, audio is just, and then the written word. And the magic thing is you've got to do what you're comfortable at doing. Now, if you can get over the fact of video, I mean, if you type in "how do I get over my fear of video," there's loads of videos out there. It comes back down to your caveman brain or cavewoman brain and the fear of being kicked out of the tribe. Okay, I won't bore people to death. I've done some videos on it. If you go to my YouTube channel, Christopher Watkin on YouTube, and type in "fear of video," I've done some videos on it. And it tells you the science why you fear the fear. If you can get past just hitting the word publish, you'll realize after 10 videos that, quite frankly, no one's waiting for your videos, and there aren't that many trolls out there. But if you can't do that and you have to do audio, do audio. If you've got to do written, do written. But just do content, which isn't trying to get something, which is trying to sell them something. It's trying to give them something. And if you go with that mindset and intent, which is what we said at the start of the podcast, you'll be on a winner.
Yeah, perfect. So if there were to be 3 takeaways for people in terms of content, would it be something like create stories, do it consistently, and anything else, or try and do video? Right. I guess
the right intent. The intent,
right? Yeah.
If you do videos and it's "Hi, I'm Chris Watkin from Chris Watkin Chartered Surveyors, and if you've got a crack in your video in your house, give me a call." You're using video, but the intent is trying to get something. So it's right intent, going out there to help people, doing the content, whichever you feel comfortable with, and more importantly, finally, being consistent with it. Because it's the consistency over a period of 12 to 18 to 24 months. But isn't it interesting? I always find it really weird. Let me leave you with this weird thought. Is is we're filming this in January 23. Okay, next month it will be the 3-year anniversary of the first lockdown, or it might be March. So we'll go 3. It's near as damn it. Okay, isn't it weird that doesn't seem like 2 minutes ago, looking back? But if I said to you, you've got to do something for 2 years before you see the results, that seems like forever. Okay? And unless you are retiring in the next 3 or 4 years, then quite frankly, what other choice have you got? You could still carry out going hand to mouth, running around like a headless chicken, dealing with your competitor will do it for £100 less, the race to the bottom. Or you can say, no, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to put the time in. I'm going to till the soil. I'm going to play the long game, just like the farmers used to. Human beings just went out hunting every day until some bright spark who came back hunting, because you have to put food on your table every day, decided for an hour every night to go and till the soil through that field next to the river, and spend one day for years and years getting rid of all the stones and putting a fence around it, collecting grass seeds, planting the grass seeds, watering it constantly. And all of a sudden, the wildebeest would walk past this green field a number of times and say, actually, sod it, what's the point of us going around the desert? We'll just walk into this field and eat grass because it's always green and lovely. The farmer then closes the gate, and now presto, the hunter doesn't have to go hunting anymore. He just has to roll out of bed, and there's a field full of wildebeest. That's what content marketing is about. You're all out there hunting the wildebeest. Why don't you spend a bit of time farming, tilling the soil, making the grass green, playing the long game, and let the buggers come to you? When I say that, the clients, let them come to want to buy from you, as opposed to you going out there selling your soul on the altar of cheap fees, prostituting your surveying degree because some twat will do it for £300 less, when in fact, if they choose you and want you, you could charge them £300 more.
I like that. It's a lovely way to finish. Thanks for coming on today, Chris, and giving your insights. I know you've got your YouTube channel, so if people want to check out all the content, which is it youtube.com?
Yeah. Just type in Christopher Watkin without an S on the end, and there's a YouTube channel there with 2,000 videos about how to be better estate and letting agents. I think a lot of surveyors could find that useful. And I also have a podcast with 1,500 episodes called the Letting and Estate Agent Podcast. And again, that is just the videos, but the audio stripped out, so it's easier to listen to in the car or when you're walking your dog.
Awesome. Thanks very much for today, Chris.
Thanks for your time, Matt, for what you're doing as well, mate.